Hey friends, long time no see, and I have cut my hair short and I don't know how to get it to look nice, so forgive me for that. Let's go with the video. So I know last time I made a video, I promised that I would cover intersectionality in news media. The big reason why I haven't really posted that video yet, or done anything close to that, is because I just don't know how to tackle that. Because there's always what sources do you use for the media when you're covering it, um, different layers, like how much should you include in the news media. Um, so now I'm going to do something different. This is inspired by the recent events in America, mainly because I live in America, so I'm affected by the Roe v. Wade, Obergefell, um, the Los Angeles jail thing. Oh God. No, I don't live in LA, but I do live in California, so I state everybody. And it's no surprise that there's going to be misinformation out there, that there's going to be a lot of opinion pieces people treat as fact, that there's going to be a lot of, sensationalized articles where they focus more on the sensation, on the emotion, on the drama than they do on actually the facts. And then we also have the January 6th hearings. Yay. And we all know that January 6th was a terrorist attack. We all know that it was a bunch of angry white people, white Americans, who wanted to overthrow everything in our country just for the sake of one dictator. And it shouldn't really be any surprise to anybody at this point that Republicans are going off the deep end and they're trying to make certain details. They're trying to make the details seem like they didn't happen. For example, with Cassidy Hutchinson's hearing, she said that Trump tried to snatch the steering wheel from Tony Ornato? Onrato? No, Ornato. From Tony Ornato. And Mark Meadows had to go on and say, well, he didn't have to go on, but he did go on and he said that the detail of Trump and Tony Ornato was false. The bigger story at hand is that Trump basically incited a terrorist attack. He incited an insurrection. He wanted to join them, I guess. He wanted just to hang on to power no matter what. That is the main point. But by focusing on the details on, well, no, this thing was wrong, this thing was actually something else, it shifts the narrative from what should be the main talking point, that Trump wanted to lead his people against the Capitol so he could get people killed and keep himself as dictator supreme. And it's important to know that this is happening for a couple reasons. One, it's just bad on their part. It's just bad on the Republicans' part, on anybody who does this part. Like, anybody who gets too hung up on the details, hello. Anyone who gets too hung up on the details really isn't worth listening to because they're more than willing to ignore the big issues, the main problems, and perfectionist isn't even the right word. It's more like they just want to toy with the narrative. Like they don't care what the main points are. They just want to do whatever they can to infuriate you, to confuse you. And it's also important to point this out because if you can point out what is a detail, you can find out what is the main story. Cassidy Hutchinson covered a lot in her testimony. Only one part of it was that Trump wanted to steal the steering wheel from Tony Ornato and he tried to strangle him. Yikes. She covered a lot of things. And it all basically summed up with Trump raged a lot. He could be physically violent and threatening. He destroyed a lot of plates when he was throwing food at the wall or TV. He wanted to hold on to power no matter what. and he was willing to kill or assault anybody to get his way. Those are the important points. I mean, it is still damning that he tried to strangle a driver, but even if you didn't know that specific detail, the fact that you still know he was willing to kill anybody to still be president, that is the main point. So if anybody tries to focus too much on the details, just don't listen to them. It sucks more when they're a congressperson. Ugh. And I know that a lot of people want to find completely neutral and unbiased media. Unfortunately, all media has some slant because we're all humans and we make the media. And even to the best of our ability, we will always have some bias leak in, which is why you shouldn't focus on only one source. Like, don't focus on just CNN or just Al Jazeera or one or the other. Like, get your news from as many sources as possible. This way, it minimizes uh, the bias of the news because you're seeing different stories, different sides of the story. And it also helps you see the big points, not the details. That being said, if let's say you look at source A and source B and source C and source D, and they all cover like these big important points, and then source E is going off about semantics or tiny details, that's a good sign that source E is not trustworthy. It is possible that that one article is just messed up because this happens with a lot of media where you might have one piece that's incredibly journalistic that has a range of sources, and then you'll get one that only platforms one side. And a common example of this is BBC. They do a lot of research for their reports and their articles, which is good. However, what they also do is if they know that there's an issue, let's take homophobia, for example. Let's say they want to do a piece exploring what the events have been recently that were homophobic, how it impacts the community. They'll bring on maybe like a gay person, but then they'll also bring on a homophobe. And that's the reason why that is not an equal representation or any good reporting is because, well, first off, the homophobe does not see the gay person or the queer person as equal. So, just basic human rights there. But also, it sets up this standard of you can't talk about certain issues unless you have strong, not quite opponents. I'll just say haters, strong haters. A recent example of this would be transphobia. If any trans or gender nonconforming or non-binary or cultural gender person is watching this, I feel ya. I really feel ya. So what BBC has done is, for example, last year it released this one article about, and trigger warning here for mentions of rape and sexual assault is not going to be the focus, but I have to put that there because I will mention it. That last year there was an article that included a poll of lesbians, and they were saying how they were being forced into relationships with trans women who still had their genitals they were born with, to put it nicely. And BBC thought that a good way to balance the source was to include someone who is a known rapist, a known assaulter, and not just that, but she also said very horrible things about trans people. Basically, she wanted them dead. And no matter how many trans people you bring on to balance it, when you have someone advocating something so strong, like Lily Kay did, You just can't balance that out. You're basically bringing on these people who are like, yes, we want to live, and then people who are saying die, 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 die. There is no compromise there. And I know in my first video, I said that a lot of media, a lot of strong and well written or well crafted media does involve narrative of some sort. And that's true. I still stand by that. If you can establish clear characters, setting, objective or purpose, and have a reasonable ending or conclusion to whatever point you're trying to make, that is how you have a clear and well-informed story for your media. That being said, I've also seen, especially since Roe v. Wade was overturned, a lot of people trying to use stories of rape and assault and incest to justify why they needed abortions. The problem with that, with all these stories coming out, is they take the focus away from the person. Because the story is not so much what did this person go through, how did they make their decision, it's why do they justify this decision, why do they choose this and not forced birth or adoption or whatever. And it turns the whole issue of abortion into one only of tragedy and trauma and pain. And the thing is, I don't have the numbers with me exactly, but I do know that a lot of people who get abortions originally wanted the kid. Now, there might be some trauma where they just couldn't because of money reasons or for health reasons. And then there are just some like trans men who are like, I'd rather not deal with this. Some trans men do want to get pregnant. Non-binary people like me might feel horrified with their bodies, or they might think, you know what, it's cool that I'm non-binary and I can still give birth. Woohoo. Point is, there's a lot of reasons why people get abortions. And you don't need to always associate that with trauma or pain. You should need to you should need to sensationalize pain in order to make your point. I'll do a whole video on sensationalized media because that goes back all the way to the 1910s, 1920s, and ooh, it gets spicy. So yeah, check to see if the news source is focusing on big points or details. See how they try to balance out the story, if it's an actual balance or just lip service. Be on the lookout for anything that sensationalizes or that extremifies the topic at hand. And the last thing I have to say is you don't need to read every single piece of news. I don't read every single piece of news. I mean, I have anxiety and depression. Like, I would get too overwhelmed if I read like 5 in an hour. Yes, it is important to stay informed, but it's also important for you to stay safe and healthy. I mean, I would recommend maybe just starting off with reading one news piece a day and then just figuring out from there whether you prefer watching news videos or if you prefer reading news articles, if you prefer newspapers or TV, if you would rather read 2 stories a day, or if you want to read like one big story and then several small things. Because a lot of shit is going on in the world right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's a lot of shit going on in this world. So yes, stay informed, stay safe. This is not like my other videos, but honestly, I gotta fit the mood. Hopefully my next video will be a bit more formal. If you guys like these little discussion-based videos, please let me know. Because it'd be kind of cool to do one of these or a couple of these a month maybe, depending on how it goes, how many people want to watch. In the meantime, like I said, stay safe, stay awesome, stay informed, and we'll get this together. Bye, friends.